Welcome to Authentic Online Marketing with Ruthie Gray. Growing awareness for your blog, podcast, book, or product involves more than dancing to reels and yelling, "Buy my thing." This show models quality over clamor so you can put your spin on your message and market in a way that feels authentic to you, because nobody wants to sound like an infomercial. And now, here's your host, Ruthie Gray.
How to pivot your business. Oh boy, this is going to be a hot one, right? How many times have you pivoted your online business? Because I've done it a bunch. In fact, y'all know I just did it again. Not really pivoted my business per se, but this podcast we pivoted, we renamed, just to give you a little bit of a broader view of the inner workings and outer workings of Instagram. There was another reason for that. The name Instagram is trademarked, you guys. So, yeah, you might not want to use a trademarked name the next time you go naming your podcast, your product, your anything. So let me start at the beginning. About 1 million years ago, I started blogging. It's not really true because I'm only 26. But anyway, okay, real talk here. Probably about 12 years ago, I sensed that it was time to write, and I felt something inside of me stirring. I'd been writing my whole life. I used to have a guest column, a parenting column in our local newspaper. I've done different things with writing down through the years, but my kids were leaving home, and I was thrust into the caregiving scene pretty hot and heavy. You may have heard that. So I had all these feelings inside, and I wanted to start putting them on paper or actually a PC. So I started a blog on Blogspot. Remember Blogspot? Who remembers that? It's so archaic, but that's where I started. So the first Blogspot blog was Live, Laugh, Love. And I just wrote stories of my family, what we did, things like that. And, my friends and family, they were amused. And it was funny because there's always something going on up in this house, always. Because I'm married to the guy who does everything. And I have a few kids who do everything. I have 4 kids. Now I have 2 grandkids as well. 3 in-law people I call my own. So our tribe has grown. Yeah, so I did that for a while, and then I realized that probably if anyone else outside of our family was going to read this, I needed to write something more relatable. So after I started a cooking blog, that was fun, but just a lot of work. I decided to start a WordPress.org blog called Rear Release Regroup, because this was the time of life I was in, and I wanted to mentor younger moms to prepare the way. I've been mentoring moms for years and years and years, giving advice on child rearing and so forth, just from things that I've learned along the way the Lord has walked me through different parenting seasons and toddler age up to teens and now young adulthood and letting kids go. And that is a real passion of mine still. So I did that. I wrote on that blog for 5 or 6 years, really religiously. I started a Facebook group. It was all centered around mom anger and frustration. Built that up, and I wrote a couple of books. You can still get it on Amazon. Count to 9 liberating steps for mom frustration and anger. And then another book about 8 mindsets for the mom who feels like she's failing. And so that was great, but I felt a nudging to actually start being really paid for the amount of hours that I was spending online. I also got a big nudge from my husband who said, "It's okay if you're paid for your work." So I had to do some thinking about this. What was I going to do? And how could I make this into a business that was still something I enjoyed, that I could still write, and that I could still feel like I was contributing to society in a positive way, more importantly, glorifying Jesus as I did it. So I started to reevaluate what I do and what I do well. And here's a tip for you if you're wondering this. Listen to your peers. I've mentioned before that my peers were pointing out to me that I was doing a great job on Instagram. What was I doing? It's just something that I was actually experimenting with. And I was really growing a community there effortlessly. So I decided maybe that was my superpower. And I started running accounts for people and growing their accounts really well. And you've heard this story if you've been with me any length of time. And then I started consulting with clients and I built memberships through 2020 and 2021. And I read a book by Greg McKeown called Essentialism, which changed the trajectory of my business. And I'll never forget the graphic in there. There are two circles. One circle has arrows coming out from it all around the circle. And the other circle has an arrow going straight up from it. The point is, if you're trying to do everything, then you're not going to get much done. But if you try to do one thing well, you can really gain momentum and cover ground. That's when I decided that I probably could create a business and help women with Instagram. So that was my pivot. And then you may say, well, what did you do with your blog? By now, the blog was called RuthieGray.mom. And I just decided I'm just gonna do my content here on this same blog. So my tagline before was mentoring moms to capture joy in parenting. Now the tagline is mentoring moms to capture joy in home and business. And that is where I house my podcast. You may not have the same philosophy as me, but my philosophy is sort of the easy button. What is the most simple thing? The simplest way to get from A to B without thinking so hard that my brain cramps and without doing all these other going behind myself and having to clean up all this other stuff. What's the simplest way to get from A to B? So for me, the simplest way was just to do it with the platforms that I already had. So I stuck with the blog. I did try to create a new Instagram account, and I realized that it just wasn't working. When I decided to go into business with Instagram as my, what I was teaching, I'm not in business for Instagram by any means. They do not pay me. Instagram is in love with Instagram and not anyone else. So just throwing that out there. I just couldn't do it. I could not run two accounts, and I don't really advise it either. I think it's very hard to run two Instagram accounts and do it well if you're one person. And I am just one person. You probably are too. So I came back over to RuthieGray.mom and said, okay, everybody, this is what we're doing now. I know I'm a mom mentor, but we're going to go this direction now. And do you know what? Here's the thing. Most of my moms stayed with me. And the reason that they stayed with me was because they were already invested in me. I don't know how you feel about the word super fans, but it's the best way I can. They're not my fans because they're just my community. They're my tribe, really. I don't know how you feel about the word tribe either, so I'm sorry if you don't like that word either. But what I'm trying to say is your people, once you earn their trust, even if you take a pivot, they stick with you because they love you even more than what your message is about. Because if you think about it, you are your brand. You are your message. Your personality is your message. At least it is on Instagram. And Instagram is where you can shine your personality and your message, especially through video formats and stories. Your character stands. And these gals, they stayed. They're still in contact with me. Some of them say, I wish I was really building an Instagram account because I could, buy in even more. So anyway, I want you to ask yourself 3 questions if you're pivoting right now, or if you're considering a pivot. Number 1, what is your superpower? Like I've said before, and I said it in the trailer for this season 2 for the Authentic Online Marketing show with Ruthie Gray, my superpower is Instagram, yes. However, if Instagram's shut down tomorrow, I would not die. or fade into oblivion because I have other plans in place online. And one of them is my newsletter. I have newsletter readers that out of all the newsletters they receive, they save mine. Sit down with a nice macchiato or whatever, espresso, iced tea, when they have time to read it. I love that because I love wordsmithing. I love crafting words that move people and spur them and incite them to do what God is prompting them to do. So writing is my superpower, and building community is my superpower. I teach how to do that inside my Instagram Insider membership and my Insider Intensive, which, by the way, is opening in late August. Keep your ears open. So those things are my superpower. Instagram, writing, newsletters, teaching is another superpower of mine. So these all have common threads. And so that's how I am where I am today. Number 2, what is the low-hanging fruit? For me, when my husband said, look at what you're creating, what could you charge for that would pay you back for the work and the tons and amounts of hours that you're putting, and then pull back from so many hours? What can you do that you would feel like you were serving your audience and yet you could still charge? That, for me, was teaching Instagram, and eventually which transitioned into coaching clients and opening my memberships. That was it for me. That was the low-hanging fruit. What's the low-hanging fruit for you? What's right in front of you that you might be ignoring? That's super easy for you, but it's not easy for everybody else. Think about it. Come on. You're smart, and you're smarter than you think you are. Number 3, ask yourself this. What is the simplest way to go about it? Don't go all around the horn. For me, it was simply transitioning my blog from Re-Release Regroup to Ruthie Grayed Out Mom, and from Ruthie Grayed Out Mom to housing the podcast there. I changed my Instagram account name so many times, I can't even tell you the username, but I did it. And I just stayed the trajectory. Not everybody will encourage you to do that. I'm saying this is what worked for me. Think about what is the simplest way, because often we get so paralyzed in all the different steps it's going to take that we do nothing. That's not good, right? What's the simplest way? Okay, so 3 things to do. I want to give you this parting advice about your pivot. Number 1, don't do what everyone else does and follow what everyone else says. You are the only person with your personality. So do what feels right between you and God. Pray, 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 pray. Take it to the Lord, read the word, meditate on it, and then go for it. Go. And not everyone will agree with your decision, but you just have to let that go, especially if you know in your heart of hearts that is the step for you. Let the naysayers go. Just let it roll off your back. I had naysayers too. I did, but I knew I was doing what I was supposed to do. Number 2, choose one authority to follow and move forward in a straight line. One authority, not a whole bunch. If you're trying to learn Instagram, just follow me. Just follow me. Just forget at what everybody else is saying, because everybody is trying to establish themselves as an Instagram authority, okay? Choose one, because remember the circle with all the different arrows. Just choose one and do what they say. And purchase coaching in whatever area that is, if needed. And usually business coaching is needed. I know I have a coach. I invested. I was moving very slowly like a snail in my business until almost the end of last year, 2020, when I secured personal business coaching. And within 4 to 6 weeks, I had made 5 figures. And this is after trying for years to do that. You can do this too, but you probably will need to invest. Number 3, move. Just move. A friend of mine always says, you can't steer a parked car. And also, I just heard this brilliant line on Downton Abbey from Lady Sybil Crawley. You may have heard it too. No one hits the bullseye with the first arrow. It takes practice. You're not instantly going to be good at reels. You're not instantly going to be good at building a blog. You're not instantly going to be good at graphics. You're not instantly going to be good at newsletters, but you have to take the first step, right? Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. And you know it. It's just like babies learning to walk. If they just sit down on their butts and say, I'll never learn, which they don't do that, right? They're determined. You need to be determined too. I believe in you. You need to believe in yourself. And that is my advice for you. Let me review. On your pivot, ask yourself 3 questions. What's my superpower? What's the low-hanging fruit? What's the simplest way to go about it? And then do these 3 things. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Do what is right for you. Number 2, choose one authority to follow. And number 3, move. Move. Get moving. Come on. You can do this. All right, guys, reels are coming in hot and heavy. So get in my free Facebook group. It's called Authentic Instagram Engagement to hear the latest chatter, share your reels with others, and get ideas for your own. And get ready, because pretty soon we're going to announce a reels training class and a challenge. So get on up in there. You'll have to request to join, and you will be asked 3 questions. And then you will be admitted and all your dreams will come true. Well, okay. So that's kind of a joke. Not really, but you got to do the work, right? Thanks for listening this week. Join me next week. My special guest, Ren Robbins, is going to talk about how she started and grew her coaching Instagram account to 100 within weeks. Stay tuned.